Alex AJKHoosier1 Kamberis is no newcomer to the online poker scene. Last year, he finished in 66th place in the Online Player of the Year race and earned more than $300,000 in OPOY qualified finishes. Well, he's already doing much better than that this year. He's currently in second place on the OPOY leaderboard, within reach of the top spot, and he already has earned more than last year at $446,000 in OPOY winnings. He vaulted up the leaderboard mainly by virtue of two big scores that he recently made. First, he came in as runner-up in the Full Tilt $1 million guaranteed tournament in July. Then, less than a week later, he took down the Absolute Poker Saturday $150,000 guaranteed tournament. Those two finishes landed him more than $170,000. We have Alex on the phone right now to talk about those wins and his strategies for getting that far in multi-table tournaments. All right, well, thank you very much for being with us here today, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Well, so first off, I mean, I've interviewed you before, although it wasn't for Card Player TV. It was just a written interview for cardplayer.com. So many of the people that may be viewing this might not know you as well. So could you maybe briefly go over what you did before poker and how you got into poker in the first place?
Yeah, before poker, I mean, I was kind of just doing like the sort of the typical thing that like every, student does and, kid, in high school, going into college. I was basically, just on the whole plan that like I was going to go to go to Indiana University and get a business degree, and I was like on pace for all that. And in the middle of high school, actually, my friend Jason Glass, he's actually gone deep he went deep in the main event this year. He's done well in a few tournaments recently. But in high school, like before I even knew that a straight beats three of a kind and whatever, he would show up during our free period and with the deck of cards, and I kind of like watched them play for a little bit, and like I got into it really quickly. Just the whole strategy behind everything was really interesting to me right away. And usually, like whenever a friend of mine a friends of mine become good at something or interested in something, then it's like just natural for me to like naturally like need to try to be better than them, or like at least be able to compete with them. So just from taking beatings from him basically during free period of high school, I kind of just started getting into the game. And then by the time college rolled around, I was making the the small, the $50 deposits on the stars, and I guess just took like beating after beating until eventually something just clicked and I finally started winning.
So what stakes did you start at then, and how did you build up your bankroll to be able to jump to the level you're playing at right now?
Yeah, I started off mostly with the really low stakes sit and goes, like the super low stakes, like dollar sit and goes or whatever they have, and the really small 180 mans just to like try to build. And I mean, it took me a while, but I started I guess climbing the ranks of the sit and goes first, just slowly working my way up. And there are definitely a couple times where I took shots over my bankroll, like playing sit and goes I shouldn't have played, but they ended up going well, so that was a boost and stuff like that, which obviously I wouldn't recommend, but I guess I got lucky or whatever. But and I kind of just worked my way up through the sit and goes, and then kind of just started I don't know what happened, stumbling across like Pocket Fives and Card Player and all the people that update the tournaments, and I kind of wanted to be included in that, and it became what I was interested in. So I got into tournaments, and I had a couple decent scores, and eventually after playing for a while, I ended up getting a backing deal from Johnny Backs and Sheets. So that's what really like got me to start playing full time all the high stakes tournaments online. So I guess that's what like really started me off in being a full time tournament player.
Okay. Well, and kind of branching off of that, what do you think of the entire idea of getting backed or backing people in tournaments?
I mean, there's people who make just a ridiculous amount of money by backing people. I mean, I know guys who make, I know good players who make more by, the people that they back than they make themselves. And, as long as you pick, guys who are trustworthy, on both sides as far as, whether you're a backer or a backee, I definitely think it can be a good experience. There's so many good players out there who just, either haven't caught a break yet or just don't have the bankroll to play the tournaments that they could probably beat. And if someone can just, kind of help them skip the bankroll building step and get them into tournaments, that they know that they can compete at, I think it works out really well for everyone involved. And I've been more than happy to be back, and I was really happy with that situation. It's nice not having any risk online. I don't have any of my own money online, and there's a lot of people who are more comfortable with that. I guess I'm one of them too. So I think it's a really common practice now. I feel like most guys are back at this point, but I think it's really helpful to some very good players who might not be able to get started as quickly otherwise.
Okay. Well, and how does one go about getting backed? I mean, like, there's not obviously a clear-cut path to getting yourself backed, so.
I mean, like, for me, I had played, like, a lot with, Johnny Backs and Sheets, and, they knew that I knew what I was doing, and, I guess I was one of those players at the time who, between, like, bad habits and just, like I said, taking shots that I shouldn't have been, I had the skill to beat the middle high-stakes tournaments, but I didn't have the role to do it. So they knew that right away. But as far as like someone who doesn't, who isn't like, if they're trying to find a backer who isn't really familiar with their play, I mean, there's certain guys in the community that everyone knows backs a ton of people like Backs and Sheets, but otherwise, you kind of just have to at least make a little bit of a name for yourself first. At least have like a couple accomplishments or decent scores so that obviously someone knows what you're doing, and then. Some people, backers go out looking for guys sometimes, and sometimes the backer or people who are looking for backers will go to, it works both ways, I guess. But I don't know, there's no like surefire way to do it. I guess you just gotta like either be patient with it, or try to like accomplish something so that you at least a little bit established, and then try to find a deal that you won't get ripped off by.
Gotcha. Well, kind of going off tangentially now. I mean, you've made more than your lifetime live tournament winnings in just one online poker tournament score. Obviously, it was the recent Full Tilt Million where you made $130,000 or so. Is that right?
Like 135, whatever.
And your live tournament scores totaled to like 120,000. So that's not to say that you haven't had, that's not to say that you haven't had success live, because you've made some final tables and you've had some decent scores. But I mean, are you better at playing online, or do you just not play very many live events, or what do you think is the case?
Like I turned 21, last summer, just in time for the World Series, and I've only been playing the live tournaments. I've been playing a lot of them. Like I've been traveling, as much as possible for the past year or so. But a year's worth of live tournaments, I would say I've probably still only played, maybe 30-ish. I mean, I'd have to like think of the exact number, but it can't be much more than 30. So it's really, really hard to draw a comparison between the fact that I've played, like, God knows how many thousands of tournaments online and, just, like, a handful of tournaments live. Obviously, like, proportionally, buy-ins-wise, I've played a decent amount of tournaments live, but it's so hard because, it's so easy to, like, brick out 4 tournaments, but live, if you brick out 4 tournaments, that's, you're minus 40K or whatever, and,
right.
I feel like, a lot of that is just, getting the experience, playing more, hopefully I'll pick up like a one big score live. Even a mediocre score live would dwarf that score, the 135K. So like it's just a matter of one. But I really haven't played that many in the swings. The variance live is just huge, and I'm just like I said, I've only been playing the live tournaments for a year. So I mean it's really just I think it's just a variance thing. Hopefully I don't just suck at live poker. I don't really see why that would be. I feel like it's way softer and all that. So. I think it's just a coincidence or variance or whatever you want to call it. But I definitely feel comfortable playing live, maybe even more so.
Maybe you just have some ridiculously obvious live tells.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't know, maybe. Like, I must have some kind of, like, twitch or something I don't know about. I don't know what it is. But
maybe you...
I honestly, like, I prefer playing live. I mean, I guess, like, my results, like I said, online are obviously way better, but I would always take the live tournament over just a random online tournament.
Okay. Well, as far as the Full Tilt Million is concerned, what kind of mistakes are you seeing people making in the early stages of something like that?
Well, especially in a tournament like that, where the structure is really good and you start off with like a ton of chips early. I feel like the bad players are like whatever mediocre players are. They're trying to see like a flop with every hand just because they feel like they have all these chips and they need to. Or, they're like, they're not able to do things like, just open folding ace-jack under the gun in the first couple levels, which is, it's like super standard, but most people just feel like they have, 5,000 chips at 15, 30 blinds, they got to raise, whatever, they got to try to call hit every flop. And I feel like a lot of people just chip down that way, rather than, the people who are more selective really going when everyone else is flashing around and, are able to chip up against the people who are, calling off raises pre-flop with whatever, and then basically check folding every flop because, most of the time you're not going to hit, obviously. So I feel like it's just, it's mostly just the starting hand selection. Most people don't have the tight range that they need early, and I think, the good players obviously take advantage of that, and that's probably the main mistake that you'll see, amateur players making, especially, like I said, in one of those big field tournaments where the structure is really deep early, and they feel obligated, and it's just not a profitable way to play.
Okay. Well, I guess the other side of that coin that I've heard from some poker pros is that you might be able to play some more speculative hands and see some more flops because you think that you can outplay the poor players that are pretty much, these tournaments are pretty much saturated with. So do you disagree with that to a certain extent?
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely, I'm not saying, don't try to see, some reason I'm not saying don't try to see a flop with, Jack 10 suited, ace, those kind of hands, obviously you want to see a flop, especially in position, whenever, you can obviously play, the weaker players after the flop, and, with those big stacks, there's a lot of room for that kind of play. But I meant more just the kind of, I wasn't even talking about, speculative hands. I was talking about the kind of hands that don't play as well in those situations, like I said, the ace jack offsuit, those kind of things where you're never going to win that big of a pot, even if you do hit. But it's really hard to play after the flop. If you have like you said, speculative hands, that you're either gonna hit the flop really hard, or you're just gonna give up on the hand. And you have to be good enough to if you call a raise, a few ways with your 8-7 suited and the flop comes 8-3-2, you're able to just check and fold rather than the weaker players when they see a flop with those kind of hands, they're gonna put their money in with less than what they should be. They don't realize that they're just trying to hit a monster. They're just trying to hit anything. So, if a good player is seeing a bunch of flops early, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I feel like that's the problem with the selection of the weaker players is that they're not able to adjust after the flop or really play the hands the way they're supposed to.
So basically, they'll play ace jack, hit an ace, and go broke with it. Is what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. Right. Something like that. Exactly. Yeah. Where
okay.
A good player, especially with stacks that deep, is never going to lose that or play that big of a pot, on an ace high board with less than a hand that beats ace jack. You know what I mean? So
okay,
that's a big part of it, obviously.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Well, what about the late stages of tournaments? What kinds of mistakes are you seeing people make, inexperienced people make in the late stages?
Probably maybe the other way around. Especially in that tournament, in the million, I felt like I was able to just steal the blind so consistently, and people see the big pots that you win. Where either you get lucky or you win a race or you get it all in pre-flop for a ton of chips. But I felt like I was just chipping up so well by just taking the blinds down or making small re-raises in spots where I felt like people weren't going to continue because they were scared or whatever. So I feel like it's the exact opposite where people need to be playing tighter early and loose late, which everyone knows. And the weaker players late, especially when the money's starting to get big in a tournament like that, they're really not comfortable splashing around a little bit or defending their blind or stealing the blinds more, re-raising light, all that stuff. So I think that as far as weaker players later in tournaments, I mean I consider the weaker players to be the tighter players usually when it comes to the late stages. So it's just the exact opposite of the stuff from earlier in the tournament.
Okay. Well, and when you're playing these online tournaments, you're, I would assume, playing quite a few at once. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, I'm playing 5 right now.
You're playing 5 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Way to multitask, bud.
Yeah, right. I've gotten pretty good at it, actually.
Okay. For better or worse. I wonder how much.
Yeah, I mean.
I wonder how much equity I'm costing you right now.
Now to say that, but yeah, I'm definitely playing 5 tournaments right now.
Well, does busting out or suffering like a bad beat in any one of those tournaments, do you see it still affecting you in the other ones that you're still in?
I think I pride myself in being less tilty than most people even who play a ton of tournaments. I don't start throwing away tournaments just because I get back beat out of one. But there's definitely times where, let's say I'm left in one big tournament and a few not so big tournaments or ones that are still early. Where if I bust the big tournament, then the little ones are going to suffer a little bit because obviously it's hard to really instantly go from busting a big tournament late to playing a small tournament early and really putting your full effort into it. So it definitely affects things, and that's one of the reasons why I've kind of actually, it doesn't sound like it, I guess, but I've kind of cut down on the big multi-tabling just because of that reason where if I'm playing all these small tournaments and if I bust the big one, the little ones suffer. It's it's a pretty big leak, you're just throwing away money kind of. So yeah, it definitely, I mean, I don't think I tilt that bad, but there's no way that anyone can just, you bust out of a 1K and then you're going to focus on some $50 freeze out that started 20 minutes ago. It's just not even realistic. So I think everyone has those issues.
Okay. Well, what about things that are possibly a little bit less under your control? Things maybe getting tired or just getting bored?
I mean, I guess, like you're saying, they're kind of out of my control. A lot of people have to work, if it's a job, you have to go to work when you're tired. You have to, deal with the boredom and, work through it. I just try to, give myself a schedule, I kind of know in advance, like, before the week even starts, what days and nights I'm going to be playing, and I don't really let, the fact that, like, maybe there's sometimes where I just don't really feel like playing, and, like, I can definitely, if I want, I can just take the day off if I really, I'm not feeling it. But if I feel like I can still play my A game and it's a day that I was planning on playing, then you kind of just deal with the boredom. It's not like I start up, at the beginning of every day, like jumping up and down, ready to like, start some $50 tournament online. It's not like some super exciting thing anymore. But the times when it is exciting or when you actually go deep or whatever, it definitely makes up for the times where it's a grind. So you kind of just gotta have a work ethic about it and treat it like a job, and deal with that stuff and just play through it.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, what is one thing that you maybe wish that you had known about earlier on in your poker career?
I guess, the bankroll management was a big part of the stuff that I suffered from early. And I didn't have, I didn't know any of the websites that everyone goes to now. I don't even know if they existed. Like, I mean, it was only a few years ago, but I didn't have all the websites. I didn't really have, like, no one was really, like, teaching me. I didn't have, I never read any books or anything like that. So I kind of wish that, I guess, maybe either that I could have had someone around who would have been like, not like a mentor, but, someone to like look out for me a little bit or like really let me know what's smart and what isn't. But, I don't like, I kind of feel like the mistakes that you make, even though in poker they can be expensive mistakes or like really, really stupid or dangerous mistakes even if you're an idiot. But, all the mistakes that I made early are kind of what, make me more successful now. So it's almost, it's almost good that I didn't know, whatever I know now right away, because I probably wouldn't be like where I am now. But it's just, you gotta, like I said, I took a bunch of beatings, before I really started winning, and I think it's just I think it's just a big part of poker in general. There's no way to know this stuff other way. You gotta, it's all trial and error and just experience and learning. So I really don't have any like specific things that I wish I could have like not had to deal with, because I think by dealing with them I became obviously a lot better.
Okay. We said it's all about learning and experience and et cetera. So what do you think is the value of something like maybe poker books?
Like I said, I never read any, but I know there's a couple good ones, out there. Like, I'm not without naming anything specific, but there's definitely like some books that would be worth reading, especially for like a beginning or a starting off player. But I feel like books are kind of like, as far as learning poker goes, I feel like books are almost out of date already with all the training sites online and just the forums and stuff where players can actually discuss with other players. I feel like that's the best way for everyone to learn now, rather than like one person writing a book about how they feel the game should be played. I feel like it has to be more of like a pool of knowledge, where like everyone's coming together and really like discussing these things. And I feel like that's really the best way for people to learn. I really don't think the books. I think the books are just like I said, like outdated at this point.
Well, what do you think about there's kind of a new breed of book coming out, like for instance, Gus Hansen's Every Hand Revealed, where he goes through an entire tournament showing you every single hand and why he played it. And then there's a book that features the three online players, Ape Styles, Risen, and Pearl Jammer, kind of going over specific hand examples. So that's a pool of knowledge, and it's specific knowledge to like certain kinds of hands and how they play them. Do you think that those are maybe more valuable at least?
Yeah, I kind of had that book. I had the Ape Styles, the PJs, the Risen book. I had that in mind when I was like saying that, because like about the books, like that was the one that I would like probably exclude from that, because they're writing about the things that, like you're saying, it's first of all, it's three people working together, which I think is a big help, because you're not just getting one person's strategy opinions, which almost, even if it's the best player in the world, isn't really going to be that great of a book, because everyone's got different styles and different stuff that they're comfortable with, and the Gus Hansen book is not going to work for a lot of people, because it's just not everyone can play that way, and it's just people are going to try to do things that they shouldn't. But when it's three people coming together, it kind of it kind of evens out between the three of them. And those three people specifically, when it comes to beating online tournaments, like obviously they are three of the best, and their games are more ahead of the curve than I feel that most people who are writing books today would be. And they're specifically writing about online tournaments, I believe the book is about. So that's very different than some of the books about like the big field live tournaments or, you know, the tournaments that you're playing against, you know, the live players where it's really just a different world. So I think that, you know, if you're talking about, you know, an online tournament book, that would obviously be, you know, more of a good step for a novice player if they're really looking to beat the online games.
Okay. And the last question I have for you, and this is probably going to be the hardest question, is what are your biggest leaks that you still have?
I definitely think that my number one biggest leak is just giving up on pots. Like, I have trouble doing that a lot. There's definitely spots where I'm trying a little too hard to win every hand because, you know, you have, like I said, you have to be super aggressive late. But there's definitely, you know, you got to be able to change gears also, and there's definitely times where you need to just knit it up or, you know, not like try to, you know, I'm 4-betting too much. You know, every time I get re-raised, I feel like they're just messing with me, and I'll just 4-bet stupid, and it's like never works out, or just like a matter of, you know, for me, I feel like that's definitely my biggest league. Is just I hate losing pots when I really have a significant amount of chips invested, and sometimes you really just got to know when to give it up. And I'm trying to work on that, like, you know, just not feeling like I need to win every hand just because the blinds are going up or whatever. You know, just kind of finding a way to switch gears a little more and slow down a bit, but without losing the overall aggression that obviously wins tournaments.
Okay. That's all I got for you. I really appreciate you doing this interview. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, anytime.
And thank you guys for watching the Online Zone on Card Player TV.